Steve Sarkisian knows the pressure is building for Arch Manning in 2025. So how is Arch handling it? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers who are free and available wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. All right, Arch Manning. The hype is off and running. Several way too early NFL mock drafts I've seen this week for 2026 are out, and they have Arch Manning going number one overall to teams like the Browns, the Rams, the Saints, among others. And look, obviously the hype is building because, one, he was a highly touted recruit, and certainly his name brings a lot of cachet. And so Steve Sarkisian understands that. And we spoke with Sark yesterday. He was speaking at the Touchdown Club of Houston. Coach Sark met with the media for about 30 minutes addressing a number of topics. And among those, I was able to ask Sark about Arch and what his development has been like this spring, establishing himself now as the starter at quarterback with Quinn Ewers moving on. Here was Coach Steve Sarkisian talking about Arch Manning.
Yeah, I thought this was a really good spring for Arch in that, he's in year 3 in our system, and he's played in real games. He's played where he's had to be the guy preparing as a game plan that was built for him. He's had to prepare as a backup to know and then be ready if his number's called. And a lot of veteran players around him in that time, the last 2 years. And this spring, obviously, due to attrition, guys moving on, due to a couple injuries, he's really had to lead with the knowledge base that he gained the last 2 years. That when we're running a play, and not every play might be perfect. A guy might run the wrong route or not run a route at the right depth, or an offensive line not make the right line call to pick up a pressure. And so it really forced him to have those offline conversations when his series was done to help lead younger players, like those older players helped lead him when he was a young player. So I thought it was great for him. Now, we all see the physical ability. We all see the connection with Ryan Wingo. It happened again, Saturday on a big touchdown pass. We know the rapport that he has with DeAndre Moore, Cedric Baxter, a lot of those guys. But in the end, I think this time that he spent with a lot of those younger players is going to serve very valuable, not for us just as a team, but for him in the fall when those younger guys' numbers are called, that he's got some banked reps with those guys this spring. So I thought that part was really valuable for him.
That again, Sark talking about Arch. But of course, the big topic that kind of circulated earlier this week was Quinn Ewers and him leaving Texas, going pro into the draft and sliding. And a lot of conversation of should he have come back to school, whether that be at Texas. Look, Arch was there. So, I think Sark could have looked at it and said, look, you can't come back to Texas. We got Arch waiting in the wings. It's his time to shine. But certainly there was reports that there were NIL deals on the table from other schools for Quinn Ewers. And so here was Steve Sarkisian's thoughts on Quinn Ewers sliding and any thought of should he have stayed in college.
Yeah, I find it, first of all, I feel for Quinn. I think Quinn was a great player for us. I think about a lot of the people who have come into this program over the last 4 years that have impacted the growth and the trajectory of our program, and he's right there near the top, if not at the top, of the impact that he's had, not only on the field but off the field, his ability to help recruit other players to come be part of our program. I think he was one of the first guys, through all this talk about collective and all the things that were going on in the world of NIL. He never took money from our collective. All of what he did through NIL was his true name, image, and likeness, right? The intent of the rule. So on that front, I'm very grateful for what he did for our program. I think all of us, included, wish he would have gotten drafted higher. But at the end of the day, if I could have picked a place that I think is a great fit for him, I think Miami's a great fit. Systematically, what Coach McDaniel does is, if not exactly the same, very similar to what we do. So there's going to be a level of comfort for him of, style of play. He's got some great weapons on the outside. It's a warm weather place. So in the end, I think it's a good fit for him. Now it's about taking advantage of the opportunity that presents itself. But I also think it's ironic in that so many things are written and talked about the players from a negative standpoint, that transfer schools or stay in school to take more money, like it's a negative. But all of a sudden, here's a guy that said, I wanted to leave a legacy at Texas and I wanted to go play in the NFL, and now they're knocking him for not taking the money in college. So, I don't know which side of the fence everybody sits on that. But in the end, I think it just speaks to the character of him, of what he believed in and what he stood for. And nobody wanted to win a national championship much or more than Quinn on our team the last couple of years. And I don't think anybody felt it more than he did when we didn't beat Ohio State, obviously with his track record of going to school there. So in the end, it wasn't about going to another school. It was about the next the next part of the journey in his career and in his life, and that was going to the NFL. So like I said, he's got a good opportunity in front of him. Now it's time to go make the most of it.
That against Steve Sarkisian on Quinn Ewers' decision. And look, it makes sense, right? I mean, we always do the second guessing. It's like you want to complain about the kid who wants more money, and then you got a guy like Quinn Ewers who goes, no, it's not about the money and NIL. I want to go pro. I made that decision, and as he said, wanted to leave his legacy as a Longhorn quarterback. But unfortunately, NFL teams saw him differently, whether it was those injury concerns or what. But falling all the way to the 7th round, I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card in terms of, how far Quinn Ewers would slide. But Paul Feinbaum, appearing on his weekly visit with Greg McElroy and Greg Kublik in the morning there in Birmingham, he reacted to the Quinn Ewers slide about him going down to the 7th. And Feinbaum was asked if Ewers slide is a cautionary tale for players moving forward when it comes to bypassing NIL dollars on the table for another college season in favor of going pro to the NFL draft. And Paul Feinbaum said, yes, I think it's a cautionary tale that you ought to get really good advice. He said, listen, as somebody who saw Quinn Ewers a lot this past year, he just wasn't that great. Everyone knows that. I walked around the Cotton Bowl at halftime of the Ohio State game, and I can't tell you how many Texas fans yelled at me. And when I walked over to say hello, they said, why is this guy still playing quarterback? And by the way, that was the team that came within a play or two of winning the national championship. So led Ewers to making the decision to enter the draft. Feinbaum said, you have to be smart. He just let his ego get in the way, and he made a terrible decision. He would not have been at Texas in 2025. We all know that. They didn't want him anymore. He would be somewhere like Carson Beck, making a lot of money, having a good time elsewhere, maybe working on his skills as opposed to being humiliated the way he was. So strong words there from Paul Feinbaum about Quinn Ewers. I don't know if it was ego. I mean, I think he just literally made the decision. I'm going pro, but I think you should have vetted the process a little bit more. Again, nobody thought he was going to fall that far, but I think, vetted the process a little bit more in that, listen to some of these other NIL deals that are possibly on the table and places you could have gone. So anyway, we turn the page on Quinn Ewers. It is now the Arch Manning show. And certainly, Steve Sarkisian, one of the things he talked about yesterday in addressing the folks there at the Touchdown Club in Houston, he talked about Arch. He said he and Arch opted to not attend the photo shoot at the Rose Bowl for the College Football Playoff 2026 video game. He said other players and coaches were featured in leaked images, but Sark and Arch Manning were not at the photo shoot that took place a couple of weeks ago at the Rose Bowl. And Sark revealed Monday that neither he nor Manning were there with the rest of the college football prominent players and coaches who are set to be, part of the big cover reveal and all that. So, again, pretty interesting that they just decide. And this is kind of the vibe we've gotten from Arch. Is a lot of things like this, he just doesn't care about the limelight. He did sign a couple of NIL deals, but it wasn't like this huge monster headline making stuff. One more note though on the Longhorns as they head into the 2025 season and some of the teams about this team. Steve Sarkisian yesterday at the Touchdown Club of Houston was asked what fires him up coming out of spring with this Longhorn team.
The thing that really fires me up about this team, you know, and I look back and I was thinking about this as I was driving over this morning. If you remember that class 3 years ago, the Anthony Hill, the Derek Williams, the Manny Muhammad's, the Arch, and we talked about the championship pedigree of that class. A lot of those guys had either won state championships, competed for state championships. Now that they're like juniors in our program, you can feel this sense of these guys, winning is the most important thing in their DNA. You know, Michael Taff obviously has that as part of his DNA. Trey Wisner, his time at DeSoto, Leonga Lafau at Kahuku, like it's in their DNA, and you can feel it on our practice field. You can feel it the way these guys talk to one another. It's not just about having a good day. It's not just about having a good rep or a good period in practice. It's about seeing the forest through the trees, like we're doing this so that we can go do this. Like they understand the process that they're in right now to try to go achieve what they want to achieve. And that has probably been the biggest shift that this team has provided us, you know, where the last couple teams, they were growing through a coaching change, 5-7, 8-5. It was like, let's get there. These guys are, I think, thinking beyond let's get there. It's like, let's go win because this is what we're used to doing. And so that's really exciting to me, like that we have a hungry team that has a little bit different mentality about them in their approach. I don't know if I have necessarily concerns right now about our team. You know, I know we have areas that we need to continue to improve upon, and I wouldn't say there's an area in our team where we're just perfect. You know, there's everybody, we all got work to do. You know, but at the end of the day, it's combining this group of, like I said, that juniors, and there's a few seniors in there, with this influx of a young, talented group of guys that just came in, and then, you know, integrating the transfers into this mix so that we get the right flow, not just in the locker room, but really, you know, we like to play a lot of players, you know, and how many times did I come up to you guys post-game, especially early in the season, say, hey, we played 42 guys on defense in the first half, right? And we think there's a lot of value in doing that. Now, players have to earn those opportunities to do that, but surely that's when we're at our best because, again, I think big picture. I think the long road, the long game, and when you start talking 15, 16, 17 games, you're going to need a lot of bodies, and we're going to have to trust these guys early in the season to go do that. But again, they have to earn our trust to put them out there to go do it.
All right, that again, Steve Sarkisian. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit about the other big name quarterback in the SEC, DJ Lagway. What's the latest on his health? Where is he when it comes to throwing? Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. That's coming your way next. Hey, these days, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It is electric in the arena, and with the Game Time app, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time is going to make it fast and easy for you to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. The last-minute deals, like we said, save up to 60% off buying last minute for sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, theater, whatever it is. They're all in. Pricing means no surprise fees at checkouts. What you see is what you pay. Go take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download Game Time today. It is last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. We spent a good bit of time on Texas and Arch Manning there in segment number one. But how about one of the other quarterbacks that is making, got a lot of the hype going last season and a lot of hype building for him and expectations for this season. And that is DJ Lagway. And DJ Lagway posting a prominent message for Florida fans on his Instagram. The star Florida quarterback showed that he is throwing the football again during private workouts while the team is away until fall camp begins. Potentially means that the Gator quarterback could be very well be a full participant by the time that fall camp begins. Working his way back from a shoulder injury that severely limited him during spring camp, and shoulder problems were enough to cause some panic for some folks out there in Gainesville. But the latest update appears to mean and show that Lagway is getting himself back on schedule just in time for when things really matter. So that shoulder problem, it kept Lagway from throwing during any of the viewing periods of spring camp and, of course, in the spring game. And Billy Napier, he assured everyone that Lagway would be throwing the ball very soon after their spring scrimmage. He said, we'll begin throwing here in a couple weeks. Everything is on schedule. And now it appears those reassuring words regarding Lagway coming to fruition. And Florida fans can breathe a sigh of relief, at least for the time being. So good news there on DJ Lagway. Good to see him throwing. And it's big. It's big. Look, Florida can't get where they want to go this year if they do not have a healthy DJ Lagway. That's just the reality of things. I know Graham Mertz started last year, but they just look like a different team once DJ Lagway took over. And granted, the defense started playing a little bit better and some other pieces of the offense, the run game got better and all that. But, you know, it's going to be interesting to see these new weapons. Obviously, Dallas Wilson grabbed a lot of the headlines in the spring game, and, you know, there's a lot of hype and excitement about him. You know, we'll get Trey Wilson back in there, you know, healthy eventually. You got J. Michael Sturdivant coming over from UCLA this offseason, or Cal, wherever he was. Can't keep up where all the guys transfer, but he's coming in. And like we said, with Trey Wilson, you have Khalil Jackson, Aiden Mizell showed some flashes last year. So you just got a lot of pieces on this offense that, with a consistent passing game, with Lagway and Hayden Hansen at tight end, and, you know, this offensive line led by Jake Slaughter, the anchor at center. Florida's got a lot of weapons on offense, man. Look, Billy Napier didn't forget how to coach football. He's a good football coach. He's just ran into a brutal juggernaut of a schedule the last couple of years there at Florida. But, you know, if they can get the run game going, Jaden Baugh and Trayon Webb and Jacoby Jackson, and, you know, whatever the however they spread the ball out in the backfield, I just think they have so many weapons, and I'm excited to see this Florida offense go to work. It's look, the schedule is brutal again. It's not going to be easy by any means, but certainly, you know, with winning how they did down the stretch, it saved Napier's job last year. But keep in mind, that was just for last year. He still has to save his job this year. And, you know, I love how the schedule sets up. They open with Long Island University. They get South Florida, a little bit of a step up in competition. Should be a good opportunity to get ready to go before you go to Baton Rouge week 3 for a monster game at LSU. And then no rest for the weary. You're at Miami, you get a bye week, and then it's home for Texas. Now, again, this game should play out a little bit differently. You didn't have DJ Lagway in the game against Texas last year in Austin. Now you will. And you get them in the swamp. Then it's at A&M. Then home for Mississippi State. Then you get Georgia and the cocktail party. Then you're at Kentucky, winnable. At Ole Miss, winnable. Home for Tennessee, winnable now with no Nico. And home for Florida State. So that stretch of those last 4 games may be, I don't know, in the offseason may have looked a little bit more daunting, but I think now as the season gets closer, you start to look at it as a Florida fan and go, 3-1 or 4-0 is a real possibility. So maybe this is a case where Florida, much like last year, takes their lumps early in the year, and then by midseason maybe starts to get a groove. Again, the Georgia game won't be easy. We'll see. But anyway, spent a lot of time there on Florida, but I just wanted to, you know, go over it with, again, the bottom line, if DJ Lagway is healthy and plays all year, Florida's going to have a chance to make some noise and do some damage. All right. A couple other headlines coming out yesterday. A Texas offensive lineman was arrested on a DWI charge on Monday. Freshman offensive lineman Nick Brooks. The Austin Statesman reported the situation Monday, indicating he was arrested Sunday morning with a charge of DWI. And 6'7", 345-pound, coming out of high school. Big size, big physical frame. Now, on one depth chart I saw, it had Nick Brooks projected to back up Trevor Gooseby at left tackle. So we'll see how that situation plays out. And certainly if he has any kind of disciplinary action or anything like that. One other note over at Arkansas, obviously, the report came out about them going after Madden Amaliava and trying to recoup some of that money to the Arkansas Edge NIL collective, $200,000 in buyout figures to be exact. But during his Monday morning appearance on McElroy and Kublik, Paul Feinbaum said that Arkansas's attempts could earn the program a very bad reputation, even if they have a case. He said, I know a lot of people say Arkansas is doing the right thing. We all understand that. But I think the problem for schools, when you try to go to court, when you try to start suing players you recruited and offered, you're on a big risk of getting a bad reputation. At the end of the day, Feinbaum urged Arkansas to let it go, called it a bad look for the school to go down this road. He said, I would let it go. Arkansas can live without the money. You just make it too draconian. I know he had an agreement. I know he made money, and that's fair, but ultimately this goes on every day, everywhere. And do you want to be the school that young players are afraid of going to in case a mistake is made? I think it's a bad look for Arkansas. I disagree with Feinbaum. The kid never played down football for them. He didn't even make it to the fall. I'm sorry. You don't get $200,000 just for signing with a school and going through spring practice. You got to actually do something for them. It's just, that's my take. That's my opinion. But anyway, nonetheless, Paul Feinbaum disagrees. He thinks they need to go, that Arkansas needs to just back up and just eat the money and say, the hell with it. One more note here, this segment. How about a fun NFL draft note? I saw this from Chuck Dunlap, who covers or works with the SEC, said there have been 232 consecutive rounds in the NFL draft with at least one SEC player selected, with the most recent round without an SEC player. You ready for this? The last round of an NFL draft where an SEC player was not selected at all. You got to go back to the second round of the 1993 draft. That's how long it has been. 232 consecutive rounds of an NFL draft where an SEC player was taken. Absolute insanity. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Switch gears, talk a little baseball. How about Chris Lemonis on the way out after 4 years of just winning a national championship? We'll talk about that next. Hey guys, the NBA playoffs are underway, and FanDuel, they are giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. You're going to love how FanDuel is going to make betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or maybe you want to dive into some of those player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways for you to bet on your favorite player props. And plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Go claim your $250 in bonus bets today. And, of course, they got tons of football prop bets or football bets as well, getting you ready for the start of the college football season. They have some week one lines up there. They got some over-under win totals. They got some future stuff. You can bet on who is going to win the Heisman. I'm looking at right now, week one. Man, they got some games up. They got Auburn -1.5 already against Baylor, if you want to get in on that. LSU +2.5, an underdog on the road at Clemson. All that is up there for you already right there at FanDuel.com. Head to FanDuel.com, claim your $250 in bonus bets today. I roll along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And we're in the thick of the SEC baseball season, and it's starting to wind down, right? We got a couple more series to go here. But how about an SEC school moving on already from one of their head coaches? Chris Lemonis, reportedly already out at Mississippi State. Athletic director at Mississippi State, Zach Selman, made the announcement Monday saying a change in leadership is what's best for the future of Mississippi State baseball. We have not consistently met the standard of success that our school fans and student athletes expect and deserve. I want to thank Coach Lemonis for his work and the time he gave our program, including the national championship in 2021. We appreciate his efforts. They went on to say in a team meeting moments ago, we expressed our student athletes the confidence we have in the ability and the potential they have for the remainder of the season. Hard work, preparation, and talent already in this group are committed to putting them in the best position. It's interesting. I mean, look, obviously Duty Noble Field is one of the best environments in college baseball, and the fans are passionate. But man, Lemonis, he became the Bulldogs' 18th head baseball coach back in June of 2018. 6+ seasons, he goes 232 and 135. But the big one was guiding the school to their first national championship ever in 2021. And just 4 seasons later, that guy is out. I mean, it's a wild turn of events. You just feel like, man, you win a national championship at a school like Mississippi State, you should get, I don't know, at least 5-6 years. It feels like it just feels like you cut the cord short. I get it. Mississippi State fans are going to go, you were underachieving massively here recently. And yeah, I get it. But man, it just feels like that guy, at least you get a pass for 5 years, right? You win a championship. But a national search will be underway to identify their next head coach. They have already tabbed assistant coach Justin Parker as their interim. As they said, at 25 and 19 overall, 7 and 14 in SEC play. They did go or lose 2 out of 3 against Auburn this past weekend. They will host, they're hosting Kentucky this coming weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But I don't think Mississippi State's been bad. They've been middle of the pack there, and the SEC's brutal this year. It's tough in baseball, much like it was in basketball. But a search is underway, and so who are some of the names that Mississippi State could be looking at? Let me pass along a couple names I saw out there in a couple of the newspapers posted, some potential candidates. How about Chris Pollard over at Duke? He's been there for 13 seasons, has built that program into a consistent tournament team. They made 6 NCAA tournaments in the past 8 years. So Chris Pollard, a name to keep an eye on. How about Josh Elander at Tennessee, assistant coach, recruiting coordinator. He's 34, still very young. That's a guy, catch a rising star. That could be one of them. You have Skip Johnson, head coach at Oklahoma, came from Oklahoma, hired Zach Selman came from Oklahoma, hired Jeff Lebby from Oklahoma. Could have some ties there to Skip Johnson and make the jump over to Mississippi State. Nick Mingione at Kentucky. He was an assistant coach at Mississippi State from 2009 to 2016 before he got the Kentucky job. So that is certainly a big one to keep an eye on. He did sign a big 5-year contract extension this past year worth $1.4 million annually as he, obviously took them to Omaha last year. You have Mitch Canham over at Oregon State. That's a name to keep an eye on. Scott Forbes at North Carolina. And then Mark Wazakowski at Oregon. And then the last name, maybe keep an eye on, Wes Johnson over at Georgia. Was hired at Georgia 2023. Immediately took the Bulldogs to Super Regional last year. So, again, just some of the names to keep an eye on there as Mississippi State looks to replace Chris Lemonis. And as some people have said, SEC is a tough go in terms of being a head coach here. A lot of schools expect excellence, and it's a lot of teams beating up on one another. It's really tough to win in this conference, as guys like Michael earlier finding out over at Texas A&M. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, you should check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and that's already over, so forget that. Check out the portal with our buddy Brian Smith, talking all things about the recruiting portal and latest on transfers and whatnot. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Coming back and see us.